A billionaire father thought money could heal his daughter's pain till a simple hug from a waitress revealed a truth that changed their lives forever. The restaurant was not too crowded that evening. It was a calm place, with soft music in the background and warm lights glowing above each table. A tall man in a black suit walked inside, holding the small hand of a little girl. He was a billionaire businessman known in the city for his power and success. People often looked at him with respect or fear, but tonight he was not here as a businessman. He was just a father, trying to spend time with his daughter after her school recital. The little girl, around 7 years old, looked delicate in her white dress, her hair tied neatly with a ribbon. She had a soft, innocent face, but her eyes carried a sadness that even her father noticed. Since her mother had passed away 2 years ago, she often became quiet. And though her father gave her every comfort money could buy, he could not give her the love and care her mother once gave. They sat at a corner table. The billionaire adjusted his watch, trying to hide his uneasiness. He was not used to these small outings. His life was full of meetings, calls, and business trips. Spending time in a restaurant with his daughter was unusual, but he wanted to make her happy. She had performed in her school program that day, and he had promised to take her out to celebrate. A waitress came to their table, holding a small notepad. She looked to be in her late 20s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Her uniform was simple, and though she looked tired, she carried herself with dignity. She greeted them politely, asking what they would like to order. The billionaire gave the order quickly, not paying much attention, but his daughter kept staring at the waitress. There was something in the woman's face that touched her heart. The waitress bent slightly to talk to the little girl. "What would you like, sweetheart?" she asked softly. The little girl looked at her for a long moment. Her lips trembled, and suddenly her eyes filled with tears. Before anyone could react, she reached out her tiny arms and whispered, "Can I hug you, Mommy?" The billionaire froze. His hands stopped in midair as he held his glass of water. He could not believe what his daughter had just said. He was about to stop her, embarrassed by her words, but before he could speak, the waitress's expression softened. She looked shocked at first, but then her face turned tender. She leaned down and allowed the little girl to hug her. The girl wrapped her small arms tightly around the waitress's waist and pressed her face against her uniform. She began to sob quietly. The billionaire felt a strange wave of emotions. He had seen his daughter cry before, but never like this. These tears were not of anger or stubbornness. They were tears of longing, of missing something she could not explain. The waitress gently stroked the child's hair, her own eyes glistening. She whispered, "It's okay, sweetheart. I'm here." Her voice carried warmth, the kind of warmth that the girl had been craving for so long. The billionaire watched, unable to move, unable to understand why his daughter had chosen this stranger to call Mommy. The other customers in the restaurant glanced at the scene, but no one said anything. It was too touching, too real, to interrupt. The billionaire cleared his throat and looked away for a moment, hiding the storm of feelings inside him. When the little girl finally pulled back, her cheeks were wet, but she was smiling a soft, peaceful smile he hadn't seen in months. She looked at the waitress as if she had found something she had lost a long time ago. "You remind me of her," she whispered. The waitress bit her lip and gently touched the girl's cheek. The billionaire wanted to ask questions, but he stayed silent. He did not want to break the moment. Instead, he studied the waitress closely. There was nothing extraordinary about her appearance, yet there was something powerful in her kindness. His daughter, who usually stayed quiet around strangers, was now holding the waitress's hand as if they had known each other for years. The food arrived, but the little girl was more interested in talking to the waitress. She asked her simple questions, her name, if she liked children, if she lived nearby. The waitress answered with patience and warmth, never showing irritation despite having other tables to serve. She treated the child as if she was someone important, not just a customer's daughter. The billionaire noticed how his daughter's face glowed during these small exchanges. Money had never brought that glow. He had bought her dolls, dresses, even a pony once, but none of it gave her the comfort she showed now. All it took was a stranger's hug. As the night went on, the billionaire grew restless. He had built empires, signed deals worth billions, and made decisions that changed industries. Yet here he was, watching his daughter find happiness in the arms of a waitress. He felt powerless, but also curious. Who was this woman? Why did his daughter see her as a mother? When the bill came, the billionaire gave his card silently, still lost in thought. The waitress thanked him, but before leaving, she bent down to the little girl once again. "Take care, sweetheart," she said softly. The girl hugged her once more, unwilling to let go. The billionaire stood up, placing his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder. "It's time to go," he said, his voice quieter than usual. The girl nodded but looked back at the waitress again and again as they walked toward the door. Outside, the night was cool, the city lights shining in the distance. The billionaire held his daughter's hand tightly. She looked up at him and whispered, "Daddy, can we come here again? I like her." He did not reply immediately. His throat felt heavy, and for the first time in years he did not know what to say. In the car, as his driver pulled away from the restaurant, the billionaire stared out the window. His daughter leaned against him, still smiling faintly. Her small hand held his tightly, but he knew she was still thinking about the waitress. The image of that hug replayed in his mind again and again. It was not just a child's innocent mistake. There was something deeper, something waiting to be uncovered. That night, as he tucked his daughter into bed, she whispered once more. She felt like Mommy. The billionaire kissed her forehead, but inside, he felt restless. The encounter at the restaurant had opened a door he did not know existed, while his daughter slept peacefully. The billionaire sat alone in his study, staring at the city skyline from his glass window. For the first time in a long time, business deals and numbers did not matter. What mattered was a question he could not shake. Who was that waitress? And why did his daughter see her as her mother? He knew he could not let it go. Something inside him told him that this was not the end. It was just the beginning of a story he never expected to enter his life. The next few days were strangely quiet in the billionaire's house. His daughter often spoke about the waitress, mentioning her smile, her voice, and how safe she felt when she hugged her. He listened in silence, pretending to be busy with papers, but every word stayed in his mind. It was unusual for him to think so much about a stranger, yet something about that moment in the restaurant refused to leave. He noticed how his daughter now compared little things to the waitress. If someone served food at home, she would say, "She didn't ask me like that kind lady did." When her nanny tried to braid her hair, she whispered, "It's not as soft as when she touched me." The billionaire realized that the memory of that one meeting had become special for his daughter. For her, it wasn't just a hug. It was like finding a piece of her mother she had lost. One evening, as he worked in his office, his daughter entered quietly. She held a drawing in her hand. It was a child's sketch of 3 people, herself, her father, and the waitress. The billionaire stared at it, unable to say anything. His daughter looked up at him with innocent eyes and said softly, "Daddy, I wish she could be with us." Then she left the room, leaving him staring at the paper for a long time. That night, he could not sleep. He lay in bed, turning over thoughts in his mind. Why did his daughter feel such a strong bond with the waitress? Why did he himself feel unsettled, curious, and even strangely pulled toward her? He had met thousands of people in his life partners, clients, politicians, celebrities, but none had shaken his calm like this. He kept seeing the way the waitress had bent down to comfort his daughter, how natural it looked, how her eyes softened as if she truly cared. The next day, without telling anyone, he returned to the restaurant. He wore a plain shirt instead of his usual suit, hoping to avoid recognition. When he entered, the same warm lights greeted him. The waitress was there, moving quickly between tables, carrying trays with a quiet grace. She looked tired, but her smile never faded when she spoke to the customers. He sat at a corner table again, watching. She didn't notice him at first. She was busy serving a family with small children, bending down to make them laugh, arranging their plates carefully. Her kindness wasn't just for his daughter. It seemed to be who she was. When she finally reached his table, she recognized him and smiled politely. "Good evening, sir," she said. "Back again?" "Yes," he replied, his voice calm. "Just coffee this time." As she walked away, he found himself studying her. Her uniform was neat but a little worn, her shoes slightly old. He wondered what kind of life she lived outside this place. She was clearly not rich, yet there was dignity in her every move. A quiet strength that impressed him more than the polished manners of the wealthy people he met. Daily when she brought his coffee, he asked casually, "How long have you been working here?" She looked surprised at his interest but answered simply, "Almost for years, and before that." He asked. She hesitated for a second, then smiled faintly. "Different jobs?" "Nothing important," he nodded, not pushing further. But inside his curiosity grew. Why would someone like her with such warmth be stuck in small jobs for years? Over the next week, he returned several times, sometimes with his daughter, sometimes alone. Each time he noticed the same thing, his daughter's happiness around the waitress. The little girl would chatter, laugh, and even eat better when the waitress served her. The billionaire couldn't ignore it anymore. His daughter was starving for love, and she found it in this woman. One evening, he decided to stay longer, watching the restaurant after most customers had left. He saw the waitress cleaning tables with quiet focus. Another waiter teased her lightly, and she laughed. But her laugh carried both joy and a little sadness, as if life had taught her too many lessons. The billionaire felt a strange pull toward her story. He began to ask discreet questions. Using his contacts, he searched for information about her. He discovered her name, where she lived, and a few details about her past. She lived in a small apartment, supported an elderly parent, and had once dreamed of studying further, but financial struggles had stopped her. He also learned she had faced losses in her life, though the details were not clear. The more he learned, the more he respected her. She was not someone living an easy life, yet she carried herself with grace. She had no riches, but she had something he had almost forgotten: existed genuine kindness without expectation. One day, while driving his daughter to school, she suddenly said, "Daddy, why don't you talk to her more? She is nice. She makes me feel happy." Her words struck him deeply. A child's honesty often revealed truths adults ignored. He realized his daughter was right. He couldn't just watch from a distance anymore, so the next time he went to the restaurant, he stayed after closing hours. The waitress looked surprised to see him still sitting there. "Sir, we are about to close," she said gently. He looked at her, his voice low but steady. "I wanted to thank you, my daughter. She hasn't smiled like that in a long time. You gave her something I couldn't." The waitress blinked, clearly touched. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "She's a wonderful child. She just needs warmth, that's all." Her simple words pierced him. He had given his daughter wealth, toys, comfort, but not warmth. That one word explained everything. He wanted to ask her about her life, about what made her the way she was, but he stopped himself. It was not the right time. Instead, he left quietly, though her words stayed in his heart. At home, he found himself thinking more about her. Not as a waitress, not as an employee serving food, but as a human being with hidden depths. He realized he wanted to know her story. His daughter's innocent affection had opened a door, and now he wanted to step through it. The billionaire, who once believed money could solve every problem, now faced something money could not buy. His daughter's happiness was tied to a woman he barely knew, a woman who had entered their lives by chance, yet felt as if she belonged there. That night, as he stood by his daughter's bedside, watching her sleep peacefully, he made a silent decision. He would find out who this waitress truly was. Not just her name, not just her address, but her real story. Something inside told him that this woman was not just a passing stranger. She was connected to their lives in a way he was yet to understand, and deep in his heart, felt that the truth waiting ahead would change everything. The billionaire had always been a man who believed in knowing every detail before making a move. In business, he never allowed surprises. But this time, it was different. His curiosity about the waitress was not about money or profit. It was personal, and that made it strange for him. He felt almost nervous, something he hadn't felt in years. He began to quietly investigate her life. With his resources, it wasn't difficult. One of his assistants brought him a small file within a day. He opened it late at night in his study. The file contained her background, her full name, age, place of birth, and current address. She lived in a small, rented apartment in an old building. Her mother was ill and needed constant care. Her father had passed away when she was very young. She had studied well in school, but could not finish college because she had to work to support her family. The billionaire read every page slowly, feeling an unfamiliar heaviness in his chest. She had faced struggles he had never known. While he had built his empire in boardrooms and offices, she had been fighting for survival in kitchens and cafes. Yet, despite all this, she carried herself with dignity and warmth. He remembered her gentle words to his daughter. "She just needs warmth." Those words made more sense now. She knew what it meant to live without it. One detail in the file caught his attention. Years ago, she had applied for a scholarship that was connected to his late wife's family foundation. The billionaire paused, staring at the line again and again. His wife had once been deeply involved in helping underprivileged students. Could it be possible that the waitress had once crossed paths with her? The thought unsettled him. He closed the file and leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. His daughter had hugged this woman and called her mommy. Was it just a child's longing, or was there something more? Some invisible thread connecting them all? The next day, he decided to see her world for himself. Without his driver or any guard, he drove to the address listed in the file. The neighborhood was far from the polished streets he was used to. The buildings were old, paint peeling from the walls, children playing barefoot in narrow lanes. He parked quietly and walked toward her building. From the stairwell, he heard her voice. She was speaking gently to her mother, helping her sit up. Through the half-open door, he saw her small apartment. The furniture was old, but clean. The kitchen smelled of simple, home-cooked food. Despite the poverty, the place had a feeling of warmth. He watched silently for a moment, feeling like an intruder, and left before she noticed him. That night, he could not sleep again. His mind kept circling back to the scholarship detail. He went into his late wife's old office, which he had kept untouched for years. He searched through her old papers and files until he found a folder of applications from the foundation. And there it was, her name, written neatly in black ink. His wife had once written a note beside it. "Bright, hard-working girl. Deserves a chance." The billionaire's hands trembled slightly as he read the words. His wife had noticed her once. She had seen the potential in the girl who was now working as a waitress. Life had been cruel, taking away opportunities from her, and his wife had passed away before she could help. He sat there for a long time, staring at the file. He thought about his daughter's innocent hug, her words. She felt like mommy. Could it be that his daughter had sensed something even he had not? Days passed, but his curiosity only grew stronger. He began to visit the restaurant more often, not just to watch her but to talk. Slowly, their conversations became longer. He learned that she loved books, but had no time to read, that she once wanted to be a teacher, that she often skipped her own needs to care for her sick mother. She never complained, never asked for pity. She spoke with quiet acceptance, as if she had made peace with her difficult life. One evening, after the restaurant closed, he stayed behind. She looked at him with tired but curious eyes. "Why do you keep coming here?" she asked softly. He hesitated, then said, honestly, "Because of my daughter. She feels connected to you. I don't understand it, but I want to." The waitress looked down, her hands tightening around the cloth she was holding. For a moment, she seemed lost in thought. Then she whispered, "Children sometimes see what adults cannot. Maybe she misses her mother so much that she sees her in me." Her words were simple, but her voice carried a weight. The billionaire felt there was more she was not saying. He wanted to press further, but he respected her silence. Still, the feeling grew inside him that there was something hidden, something she was holding back. His daughter's bond with the waitress only deepened. Each visit, the girl clung to her, smiled more, laughed louder. The billionaire watched with mixed emotions, joy at his daughter's happiness, and confusion at the mystery surrounding this woman. One day, while talking with her, he gently asked. "Did you ever know my wife?" "Her name was—" He mentioned it softly. The waitress froze. Her eyes widened, and for a second her face showed shock. She quickly looked away, pretending to clean a glass. "No," she said after a pause, but her voice lacked strength. The billionaire noticed it. That hesitation. That flicker in her eyes. She was hiding something. Later that night, he sat in his study again, thinking. All his instincts told him that the waitress had some connection to his wife. The scholarship note her reaction when he mentioned the name. His daughter's strange attachment to it was all pointing in one direction. He felt torn. Part of him wanted to respect her privacy, but another part pushed him to uncover the truth. He was a man who had never left questions unanswered, and now, when it involved his daughter and his late wife's memory, he could not stop. The more he thought, the more restless he became. Finally, he decided he would ask her directly. No more hints, no more waiting. He needed to know what truth she was carrying inside her and deep in his heart. He felt that when that truth came out, it would not just surprise him, it would change his life. His daughter's life, and hers forever. The billionaire decided he could not wait any longer. The questions in his heart were growing too heavy. He arranged to meet the waitress one evening after her shift ended. The restaurant was nearly empty when he asked her if she could sit with him for a few minutes. She looked surprised, but agreed, placing her apron aside and sitting across from him. For a moment, there was silence. He studied her face, the tired but kind eyes, the way her hands nervously folded together. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but firm. "There's something I need to know. My daughter feels a strong connection to you. And when I mentioned my late wife's name, I saw your reaction. Please be honest with me. Did you know her?" The waitress looked down, her lips trembling slightly. She seemed to struggle with herself, as if deciding whether to speak or to hide the truth. Then she whispered, "Yes, I knew her." The billionaire felt his heart jolt. He leaned forward. "How?" Tears welled up in the waitress's eyes. She took a deep breath and began to explain. Years ago, when she was still young and hopeful, she had applied for a scholarship through a foundation. It was his wife who had interviewed her. She remembered the meeting clearly. His wife had spoken gently, encouraging her, telling her she had great potential. The kindness in her words had stayed with her for years, but life was not kind to me, the waitress said softly. Even though I was chosen, I could not continue. My mother fell ill, and I had to drop everything to take care of her, your wife. She wrote me a letter saying she believed in me, that she wanted me to follow my dreams. I kept that letter all these years. It is the only thing that gave me hope in my darkest times. The billionaire sat in silence, his chest tightening. He pictured his wife, her gentle smile, the way she always tried to help people. It felt strange and painful that the woman sitting before him had once been touched by his wife's kindness. The waitress continued, her voice breaking. When your daughter hugged me that day, it was as if life played a trick on me. I felt something too. I didn't mean to replace her mother. I would never dare. But the way she looked at me, the way she held me, it was as if some part of your wife's love had passed through to her. And maybe, in that moment, I was just a mirror of what she longed for. The billionaire felt a lump in his throat. He had not expected such honesty, such raw emotion. He had come searching for answers, but what he found was deeper than he imagined. His wife's kindness had left footprints in this woman's life, and now, years later, their daughter had unknowingly been drawn to her at that moment. His daughter walked into the restaurant, having run in from the car where the driver was waiting. She rushed to the waitress, hugging her tightly as if she'd been gone for days. "I missed you," the girl whispered. The billionaire watched silently, emotions storming inside him. His daughter looked happier in those few minutes than she had in months. The waitress gently stroked her hair, tears slipping down her face. She whispered to the girl, "You are so precious." The billionaire's eyes burned, but he did not let the tears fall. For years, he had believed money could solve every wound, but in that moment, he realized how wrong he had been. His daughter did not need toys or dresses. She needed warmth, and somehow, this woman had the ability to give it. When the girl finally stepped back, The billionaire cleared his throat. "I want you to come to our house," he said, his voice low but steady. "Not as a guest for one evening. I want my daughter to spend time with you. She needs you." The waitress shook her head quickly. "I can't. I'm just a waitress. People like me don't belong in your world." But the billionaire looked at her firmly. "You belong in her world. That's enough." The waitress's eyes filled again. She had lived most of her life being overlooked, ignored, or pitied. No one had ever told her she belonged anywhere. Hearing those words shook her deeply. Over the following days, she began visiting their home. At first, she felt shy and out of place among the grand rooms and expensive furniture. But the little girl clung to her happily, showing her toys, asking her to braid her hair, begging her to read bedtime stories. Slowly, the house that had felt cold for years began to fill with laughter again. The billionaire observed quietly. He saw how naturally the waitress comforted his daughter, how patiently she listened, how gently she corrected her. He saw how his daughter's eyes sparkled when she was around. And he realized something else. He himself felt a strange peace in her presence. One evening, as they sat in the garden while his daughter played, the billionaire finally asked the question that had been sitting in his heart. "Why did you never tell me about the connection with my wife? Why hide it?" The waitress sighed, looking up at the stars. "Because I didn't want you to think I was trying to use it. People might believe I came close to your daughter just for attention or for some gain. I didn't want to dishonor your wife's memory. That's why I stayed quiet." The billionaire studied her face. She was sincere. He realized she was not like the people who always surrounded him, seeking favors or money. She was different. She was genuine. As days turned into weeks, the bond grew stronger. The daughter, once quiet and lonely, now laughed freely. The waitress, once burdened with sadness, now found joy she hadn't expected. And the billionaire, once lost in his work, began to feel alive again. But with this closeness came a fear. The waitress worried what people would say, how the world would judge her. The billionaire, too, wondered what it meant for his life, his reputation, and his future. Yet when he looked at his daughter's smiling face, all doubts seemed small. One night, as he tucked his daughter into bed, she whispered sleepily, "Daddy, can she stay with us forever?" "Please." The billionaire's heart ached. He kissed her forehead, unable to answer right away. He knew this was no longer just about a passing bond. This was about building a future, one that included all three of them. In his heart, he knew the truth was out now. His wife's kindness had planted a seed years ago. That seed had grown quietly, and now it had returned to his life in the form of this woman. And perhaps, just perhaps, this was not a coincidence. It was destiny. The days that followed were filled with changes that no one had expected. The billionaire's mansion, which once felt like a museum, large, quiet, and cold, began to feel alive again. His daughter's laughter echoed in the hallways. Her footsteps could be heard running from room to room, and the sound of bedtime stories filled the nights. The reason for all of this was simple. The waitress had become a part of their world at first. She came hesitantly, as if stepping into a world that was not meant for her. She wore simple clothes, always looking like she didn't belong among the expensive chandeliers and polished floors. But the little girl never cared about those things. She would grab her hand and pull her toward her toys, toward her books, toward her favorite corners of the house. Slowly, the waitress began to feel less like a guest and more like someone who belonged. The billionaire watched all this closely. He saw how naturally his daughter leaned on her, how freely she shared her thoughts, how quickly she fell asleep when the waitress tucked her in. He realized that in all his efforts to give his daughter comfort through wealth, he had missed the simplest thing she needed: love. And this woman, who had no riches of her own, gave it so easily. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, the billionaire asked her softly, "Do you realize what you've done?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You've brought my daughter back to life," he said. "I had almost lost her to sadness, but now she laughs, she plays, she dreams again. That's because of you." Her eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "I didn't do anything special. Children only need someone to listen, someone to care. That's all she wanted. The billionaire felt a heaviness lift from his chest. She spoke as if it were simple, but he knew it wasn't. Not everyone could give the kind of warmth she gave. As time passed, the bond between the three of them grew stronger. The daughter often said things that made the billionaire stop and think. "Daddy, when she's here, I feel like Mommy is watching me." Or, "She tells stories the way Mommy used to." These innocent words pierced his heart. But instead of pain, he felt something different. He felt healing. For the first time since his wife's passing, he believed that maybe happiness was possible again. But it wasn't easy. The waitress often struggled with doubt. She would tell him quietly, "I don't belong here. People will talk. They will think I came here to take advantage of you. I don't want to bring shame to your daughter." The billionaire always answered firmly, "You belong where my daughter needs you, and she needs you here." One night, he found her sitting in the library, staring at the letter his late wife had once written to her. She held it gently, as if it were something sacred. When he asked her why she still kept it, she whispered, "Because it reminded me that someone once believed in me. Your wife saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. That letter kept me going when I wanted to give up." The billionaire sat beside her in silence. His wife's memory was painful, but knowing that her kindness had left such a mark on this woman gave him a strange sense of peace. It felt as if his wife had left a bridge for them, a bridge that connected the past with the present. As weeks turned into months, their lives intertwined even more. The waitress became more than a visitor. She became part of their daily routine. She helped the little girl with homework, cooked simple meals in the kitchen, and filled the mansion with a warmth that had lacked for years. The staff, who at first looked at her with surprise, began to respect her too. They saw how much the little girl loved her, and they saw the quiet way the billionaire himself had changed. For the billionaire, work began to feel different. He still managed his empire, still attended meetings and made decisions, but his heart was no longer chained only to business. Every evening, he looked forward to coming home not to empty silence, but to laughter, conversation, and a sense of belonging. One afternoon, while they were at the park together, his daughter ran ahead chasing a butterfly. The billionaire and the waitress walked slowly behind her. He glanced at her and said, almost in a whisper, "Do you ever think this was meant to be?" She looked at him, surprised. "What do you mean?" "My wife once touched your life, and now, years later, you are here, touching my daughter's life. It doesn't feel like chance. It feels like destiny." The waitress lowered her eyes, her cheeks turning warm. She didn't answer, but in her heart she felt the same. As time went on, people began to notice. Friends and colleagues of the billionaire saw the change in him. Some whispered, some questioned. How could a man of his status grow close to a woman who was once just a waitress? But the billionaire didn't care. For him, the opinions of the world were small compared to the happiness of his daughter. One night, his daughter came to him with sleepy eyes and whispered, "Daddy, can she be my mommy now?" The billionaire's heart pounded at those words. He kissed her forehead and said gently, "We'll see, my dear." But inside, he already knew the answer. The day finally came when he spoke to the waitress openly. They were sitting in the garden again, the evening sky painted with colors of sunset. He looked at her seriously and said, "You've given us something I thought was lost forever. You've given my daughter her smile, and you've given me hope. I don't want this to end. I want you to stay not as a visitor, but as part of this family." Her eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. "I'm afraid. I don't know how to step into a world like yours. People will judge me. I don't have anything to give." The billionaire reached out, holding her hand firmly. "You've already given us everything we needed. Love, care, and warmth. That is more valuable than all the wealth in the world. My daughter chose you with her heart, and I choose you too." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, with tears rolling down her cheeks, she nodded slowly. From that day on, their lives changed completely. The waitress was no longer just a stranger in their story. She became a part of their family. The daughter, who once cried quietly at night, now slept peacefully, knowing she had both her father and someone she could call mommy. the billionaire, who once believed love was behind him, discovered that love had returned in a way he had never expected. His late wife's kindness had planted the seed years ago. Now that seed had blossomed into a bond that healed his family. The world talked, of course. People gossiped. Some criticized. Some doubted. But the billionaire never cared. For him, the truth was simple. He had found what really mattered. Not money, not power, not reputation, but love, family, and second chances. And so, a new beginning unfolded. A beginning where the echoes of the past turned into bridges for the future. A beginning where a little girl's innocent hug had opened a door to healing, to hope, and to a family reborn. The mansion that once felt empty was now filled with laughter, warmth, and love. The billionaire had finally learned that the richest treasure in life was not in his bank accounts, but in the hearts of the people who stood beside him.